The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of silver and glass that had stood for 3,000 years. Inside, representatives from 7 species sat in their designated sections, their forms as different as the stars themselves. The Velkari resembled insects made of living crystal. The Thorian were bear-like creatures covered in thick fur. The Zenthi were tall and thin, with skin that changed colors with their moods. Each species had earned their place through wisdom, technology, or simple survival. Ambassador Zelthar clicked his mandibles together as he reviewed the data on his holographic display. The numbers were not good. 15 worlds had fallen in the last 2 cycles. 23 billion beings were now under Kresh control. The Kresh Dominion had appeared from the rim of the galaxy like a storm, and they were hungry for conquest. The Kresh demand our surrender, Speaker Mordan announced to the assembled council. His Thorian voice was deep and rumbling like rocks grinding together. They give us 30 standard cycles to comply. If we refuse, they promise total war. The chamber erupted in noise. Some delegates shouted in anger. Others made sounds of fear. Zelthar remained quiet, his compound eyes scanning the faces around him. He saw the truth that many refused to accept. The Galactic Council was not ready for war. They had not fought a real war in 500 years. Their military ships were beautiful and advanced, but they were designed for peacekeeping. They broke up pirate bands and rescued stranded vessels. They were not built to fight an empire. We have superior numbers, insisted Delegate Thrax, a Zenthi whose skin glowed bright orange with confidence. Our technology is more advanced. The Kresh will break themselves against our defenses. Zelthar made a clicking sound that meant disagreement in his language. With respect, our technology is designed for peace. The Kresh technology is designed for war. There is a difference. You speak of defeat before we have even fought, Thrax said, his skin shifting to angry red. The council has stood for 3,000 years. We will not bow to these newcomers. The argument continued for hours, as it always did. The council loved to talk. They had grown comfortable in their peace, fat on their prosperity. Zelthar had tried to warn them for years that peace was not permanent. But no one had listened to an insect from a minor world. After the session ended, Zelthar returned to his private quarters. His assistant, a younger Velkari named Shira, was waiting with another datapad. Ambassador, the research team sent their report from the border world of Arcturus 7. Zelthar took the pad and read through the information. Arcturus 7 was a dead planet now, conquered by the Kresh 3 cycles ago. But before the evacuation, a team of archaeologists had been working there. They had found something in the deep caves beneath the surface, ruins, ancient ruins, and they were not built by any species in the council. The images showed corridors carved from rock with precision that defied explanation. Strange symbols covered the walls. The research team had managed to translate some of them before they were forced to flee. The messages were warnings: do not wake the sleepers. Do not disturb the silence. We watch from the dark. What species built this? Shira asked, her voice filled with curiosity. Zelthar clicked through more images. Then he found it, a symbol he had seen before, only in the most ancient historical archives, a circle with a cross inside it and symbols around the edge. He zoomed in on the symbols. They were old letters from an extinct language. These are human markings, he said quietly. Humans. Shira's antennae twitched with surprise. But humans are myths, Ambassador. Stories the old species tell. They supposedly vanished 500 years ago. Most scholars think they never existed at all. I am not so sure, Zelthar replied. He pulled up another file, one he had been collecting for years. There are too many references across too many ancient sites. The humans were real. They fought in the Velshari War. Historical records say they were fierce warriors, but they disappeared after that war ended. Their entire civilization went silent. No ships, no signals, no contact. The region of space they came from has been marked as a dead zone ever since. If they existed, why would they vanish? Perhaps they chose to, Zelthar said. Or perhaps something made them afraid enough to hide. Before Shira could respond, an alarm sounded through the station. It was not a normal alarm. This was the Deep Space Warning System, used only for detecting unusual activity at extreme range. Zelthar rushed to his communication terminal and connected to the Council's central command. Commander Zelnoth appeared on the screen, her Zenthi skin flashing between purple and blue, the colors of confusion and concern. Ambassador, we are detecting massive energy signatures from the Sol system. Sol? Selthar felt something cold move through his thorax. That is in the dead zone. That is where humans came from. Yes, Zelnoth said. The energy readings are enormous. Multiple sources, each one the size of a large city. They are powering up one by one. Our sensors have counted 47 distinct signatures so far, and more are appearing. What kind of ships create energy signatures that large? We do not know. We have nothing in our databases that matches. But Ambassador... Zelnoth paused, her skin turning dark blue with fear. Whatever is waking up in the Sol system, it has been asleep for a very long time. And it is very, very powerful. Zelthar looked back at the image of the human symbol on his screen. The warnings in the ruins suddenly made terrible sense. Do not wake the sleepers. But someone or something had done exactly that. The intelligence center beneath the council station was always busy, but today it was chaos. Analysts from every species crowded around holographic displays showing the Sol system. The energy signatures had grown to 73 distinct sources. Each one was moving now, slowly at first, but gaining speed. Zelthar stood beside Commander Zelnoth, watching the displays with growing dread and fascination. How long until we have visual confirmation? Long-range scanners are processing now, Zelnoth said. Her skin had settled into a steady gray, the color of forced calm. The distances are extreme, but we should have images within the hour. A Thorian analyst named Gron approached with a data tablet. Commander, we have found matches in the historical database. These energy signatures are similar to readings taken 512 years ago, during the final phase of the Velshari War. The Human War? Zelthar said quietly. Yes, Ambassador. The signatures match old sensor logs from human vessels, but these readings are much stronger. Whatever is in the Sol system, they are larger and more powerful than the human ships from the old records. Zelnoth pulled up the historical files. Grainy images appeared on the main display, showing ships from half a millennium ago. The human vessels had been strange compared to council designs. Where council ships were smooth and elegant, human ships looked brutal and efficient. They were covered in armor plating and weapon batteries. They looked exactly like what they were, tools of war. The records say humans fought the Velshari to mutual destruction, Zelnoth said, reading the old reports. The Velshari were a species that believed in conquest through overwhelming force. They attacked human colonies without warning. The war lasted 15 years. In the end, the Velshari were extinct, and humanity was reduced to a fraction of their former population. And then they vanished, Zelthar added. Every human colony, every ship, every station went silent. When Council scouts finally investigated decades later, they found the human systems intact but empty, defense stations still functioning, automated systems still running, but no people, not empty, Gron corrected. The reports say the scouts were warned away by automated defense systems. Very aggressive systems. The message was clear. Do not approach, do not investigate, do not contact. The Council decided to mark the region as a dead zone and leave it alone. Perhaps that was not abandonment, Zelthar mused. Perhaps that was a choice. Perhaps humanity decided to isolate themselves. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared again. This time it was not a distant warning. This was immediate danger. Commander, we have an emergency distress call from the Kresh Forward Fleet, a Zenthi communications officer announced. They are under attack near the Sol system boundary. The Kresh went to Sol? Zelnoth's skin flashed bright red.
What idiots would investigate an unknown energy source during a war?
The main display switched to show the distress signal. The image was broken and filled with static, but they could see enough. A Kresh battleship, one of their largest classes, was breaking apart. Massive holes had been torn through its hull. Explosions bloomed across its surface. And in the background, barely visible through the chaos, was a shadow. Something huge moving through the darkness. The transmission cleared for a moment. A Kresh commander appeared on screen, his reptilian face twisted in terror. Unknown vessel has engaged our fleet. Our shields are useless. Our weapons cannot penetrate their armor. We are taking catastrophic casualties. This is not war, this is slaughter. We are... The transmission ended in a burst of white light. Silence filled the intelligence center. Every analyst stared at the now blank screen. Get me visual, Zelnoth ordered, her voice shaking. I want to see what killed that ship. The long-range scanners focused on the battle site. The image that appeared made everyone in the room fall silent. A Kresh fleet of 37 warships was being torn apart. But it was not a fleet attacking them. It was a single ship, one enormous vessel that dwarfed even the largest Kresh battleship. Its hull was dark metal, covered in armor that seemed to absorb light itself. Weapons fired from dozens of ports along its sides, each shot precise and devastating. The ship moved through the Kresh fleet like a predator among prey, methodical and unstoppable. Scale analysis, Zelthar requested, his voice barely a whisper. The computer highlighted the human ship and provided measurements. It was over 3 kilometers long. The Kresh battleships, which the Council considered frighteningly large, were less than half that size. That is a human ship, Gran said, pointing at the hull. Look at the marking. The computer enhanced a section of the hull. There, despite 500 years in the dark, was a clear symbol, the circle with the cross. And beside it, written in human letters, was a name, TCS Indomitable. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, 34 Kresh ships were destroyed. 3 had managed to jump to faster-than-light travel and escape. The human vessel remained in position, its weapons powered down but ready. They let those ships escape, Zelthar realized. They could have destroyed all of them, but they allowed survivors. Why would they do that? Selnoth asked. To send a message, Zelthar replied, to tell someone that humanity is awake. 2 hours later, that message arrived at the Council station. It was a simple transmission, sent on old frequencies that had not been used in 500 years. The language was human standard, and it was addressed to the Galactic Council. This is the Terran Confederacy ship Indomitable to the Galactic Council. We are aware of the current galactic situation. We are aware of the Kresh aggression. We have been monitoring Council transmissions for the past 6 cycles. We request permission to send a delegation to address the Council. We have things to discuss. We are coming, whether you want us to or not. Humanity remembers. Humanity endures. And humanity protects what we claim as ours. The transmission ended. Zelthar looked around the intelligence center. Fear was clear on every face. The Kresh Dominion had seemed terrifying an hour ago. Now there was something even more frightening in the galaxy. Something that had been sleeping for 5 centuries was now awake, and it was angry. The council chamber had never been so full. Every delegate was present, along with military commanders, intelligence officers, and historians. The news of humanity's return had spread through the station like fire. Some species saw hope. Others saw a new threat that might be worse than the Kresh. Zelthar stood in his designated area, watching the main entrance. The human delegation was expected to arrive at any moment. Security had been increased to maximum levels, though everyone knew it was mostly symbolic. If humanity wanted to attack, no amount of security would stop them. They are here, announced Speaker Mordan. The massive doors at the chamber entrance opened. 2 figures walked through, and the entire council fell silent. The humans were smaller than Zelthar had expected. They stood about 2 meters tall, with smooth skin and hair growing from their heads. They wore dark blue uniforms covered in symbols and markings. But it was their eyes that caught Zelthar's attention. Human eyes were different from any species he had seen. They looked forward like predator eyes, and they were filled with intelligence and something else. Determination, maybe. Or anger that had been controlled for a very long time. The woman spoke first. Her voice was clear and strong, translated instantly by the council's systems. I am Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Terran Confederacy Navy. This is Diplomat Marcus Chen of the Terran Foreign Service. We come to speak for humanity. You are welcome, Admiral, Speaker Mordan said, though his voice betrayed uncertainty. The council has many questions. I am sure you do, Admiral Vasquez replied. She walked to the center of the chamber, moving with confidence that suggested she was afraid of nothing. But before you ask, let me tell you what you need to know. Humanity has been watching you. For 500 years, we have listened to every transmission, tracked every ship movement, and observed every decision the Council has made. Murmurs filled the chamber. Delegate Thrax stood, his skin glowing angry red. You spied on us for 5 centuries. You hid in the darkness while the galaxy moved forward? Yes, Marcus Chen said simply. We hid because 500 years ago we learned what happens when you trust that the galaxy is safe. We learned what happens when you are unprepared. The Velshari taught us that lesson in blood. 15 billion humans died in that war. Our colonies were burned. Our civilian ships were destroyed without mercy. We fought back and we won, but the cost was enormous. Admiral Vasquez activated a holographic projector she carried. Images filled the air above the chamber. They showed burning worlds, destroyed cities, and something worse. They showed the Velshari. The extinct species had been large and armored, resembling insects mixed with reptiles. The images showed what they had done to human prisoners. The torture. The experiments. The cruelty. When the war ended, we asked ourselves a question, the Admiral continued. How do we make sure this never happens again? The answer was simple. We make ourselves so strong that no one would dare attack us. So we went home. We built defenses. We developed new weapons. We trained every generation in the arts of war. We turned our entire civilization into a fortress, and we waited. You waited for what? Zelthar asked, unable to contain his curiosity. For the next threat, Marcus Chen replied, looking directly at the Velkari ambassador, because we knew there would be one. There is always another threat. And we were right. The Kresh Dominion has proven that. Speaker Mordaunt raised a massive paw. What do you want from the Council? Admiral Vasquez's expression hardened. We want 3 things. First, full membership in the Galactic Council. Our species deserves a voice in galactic affairs. Second, access to current star charts and intelligence data. We have been isolated too long and need to understand the current political situation. Third, and most important, we want operational command of the defense against the Kresh Dominion. The chamber exploded. Delegates shouted in anger, fear, and confusion. Some demanded the humans be expelled immediately. Others begged for more information. The chaos lasted several minutes before Speaker Mordaunt restored order. You ask us to give you command of our military? Thrax demanded, his skin flashing through several colors rapidly. You appear after 500 years and expect us to simply hand over control? Yes, Admiral Vasquez said without hesitation. Because you are losing. The Kresh have conquered 15 worlds in 8 cycles. They have killed or enslaved 23 billion beings. Your fleets cannot stop them because you do not know how to fight a real war. You have been at peace too long. You have forgotten what it takes to face an enemy that shows no mercy. And you remember? Asked Zelnoth, who had been granted permission to observe the session. We remember, Marcus Chen said quietly. We remember every lesson, every mistake, every death. We remember because we refuse to let it happen again, not to us and not to anyone we can protect. Admiral Vasquez activated another hologram. This one showed current intelligence on the Kresh. Images of conquered worlds appeared, cities reduced to rubble, civilian populations being loaded onto transport ships for slavery. Mass graves. The council delegates looked away, but the humans made them look back. This is what the Kresh do, the Admiral said, her voice like cold iron. This is what they will do to every world they conquer, including yours. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They see the galaxy as a resource to be harvested, and they see all of you as either slaves or obstacles to be eliminated. Zelthar stood and clicked his mandibles for attention. Admiral, if we grant you command, what will you do? The human woman looked at him, and for the first time, Zelthar saw something other than anger in her eyes. He saw sadness, deep, ancient sadness that came from losing too much. We will do what we were trained to do, she said. We will fight. We will show the Kresh what happens when you threaten innocent lives. We will show them why humanity survived when the Velshari did not. And we will end this war. At what cost? Speaker Mordaunt asked. Whatever it takes, Admiral Vasquez replied. We did not come back to the galaxy to let billions die. We came back to make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. The chamber fell silent. Zelthar looked around at his fellow delegates. He saw fear on their faces, but he also saw something else. Hope. Desperate, fragile hope. I vote yes, Zelthar announced. I vote to accept humanity's terms. I vote to give them command. Because they are right. We are losing, and we need someone who remembers how to win. The vote took 3 hours. It was close. Closer than it should have been. But in the end, fear of the Kresh was stronger than fear of humanity. The measure passed. Admiral Vasquez nodded once. Thank you. Our fleet will arrive in 12 hours. We have 217 warships en route from Sol. It is time the Kresh learned that they are not the apex predators in this galaxy. Not anymore. The human fleet arrived exactly when promised. 217 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Each ship was massive, covered in armor and weapons, and they moved with a coordination that shocked the council observers. These were not ceremonial vessels meant to look impressive. These were tools built for one purpose: war. Zelthar stood on the observation deck of the council station, watching the fleet take position. Beside him, Commander Zelnoth was analyzing the tactical displays. Their formation is aggressive, she noted, her skin shifting to nervous purple. They position themselves as if expecting attack at any moment. Even here, in our own space. They have been expecting attack for 500 years, Zelthar replied. I do not think they know any other way to be. Admiral Vasquez had wasted no time implementing what she called the Terran Doctrine. Council forces were reorganized into new fleet groups. Human officers worked alongside council commanders, teaching them tactics that seemed brutal by galactic standards. The council military had rules of engagement, established protocols, and diplomatic considerations. Humanity had one rule: win. The first major engagement came 3 cycles later at the Thraxis system. A Kresh fleet of 96 warships was moving to conquer the Thorian colony world of Thraxis Prime. The planet held 2 billion civilians who could not be evacuated in time. The Council fleet had 34 ships in position to defend. By every calculation, they would lose. Then the humans arrived. Zelthar watched the battle from his quarters, where he had access to the tactical feeds. He had asked to be an observer, to understand how humanity fought. What he saw would stay with him forever. The human fleet numbered only 18 vessels, but they moved like nothing the galaxy had seen. They did not engage in the traditional way, where ships formed lines and exchanged fire until one side broke. Instead, they appeared behind the Kresh fleet using precise, faster-than-light jumps. Before the Kresh could react, the humans launched thousands of missiles. The missiles did not target the Kresh ships directly. Instead, they filled space with electromagnetic interference, blinding sensors and disrupting communications. The Kresh fleet lost coordination immediately, each ship suddenly fighting alone in the dark. Then the human ships attacked. They did not target just one Kresh vessel at a time. They used focused fire, with multiple human ships overwhelming a single target's shields and armor within seconds. One by one, Kresh battleships exploded. The kills were efficient and brutal. No wasted shots, no mercy. Just systematic destruction. When the Kresh attempted to withdraw, the humans were waiting. They had positioned ships along the most likely escape routes. More Kresh vessels died trying to flee. The entire battle lasted 37 minutes. 96 Kresh ships entered the system. 7 managed to escape. The human fleet suffered only minor damage to 3 vessels, with no ships lost. Council observers were horrified. A Zenthi commander named Vexital sent an angry transmission to Admiral Vasquez. This is not warfare. This is butchery. You showed no honor, no respect for your enemies. The Admiral's response was cold. Honor does not protect civilians. Respect does not save lives. We fight to win because every battle we lose means innocent people die. The Kresh understand only strength. We are showing them strength. But Zelthar noticed something the other observers missed. After the battle, human ships remained in orbit around Thraxis Prime. They sent down medical teams, food supplies, and engineers to repair damage from Kresh bombing raids. The same humans who had just killed 89 enemy ships with clinical efficiency were now helping civilians with gentle care. They are protectors, Zelthar said to himself. They do not fight for glory or conquest. They fight to defend. Over the next 15 cycles, the pattern repeated across a dozen systems. Humans won every engagement, often against superior numbers. Their tactics evolved constantly. They used electronic warfare, kinetic bombardment, missile swarms, and precision strikes. They fought in ways that seemed unfair to Council observers who were used to traditional combat. But they also saved millions of lives. Every world the humans defended remained intact. Every civilian population was protected. And slowly, the Council species began to understand. Zelthar requested permission to embed himself with a human marine unit. He wanted to see them up close to understand what kind of beings could be so brutal in battle, yet so protective of innocent lives. He joined a unit commanded by Captain Sarah Rodriguez. Her team was sent to rescue civilians from a Kresh slave camp on a conquered world. Zelthar went with them. The mission was supposed to be simple. Insert quietly, free the prisoners, and extract before Kresh reinforcements arrived. But nothing in war is simple. The human Marines moved through the camp like shadows. They wore powered armor that enhanced their strength and speed. Their weapons were precise and deadly. When they encountered crash guards, the humans did not hesitate. Quick, efficient kills. No warning shots. No chances for the enemy to raise an alarm. Zelthar watched Captain Rodriguez lead her team to the prison buildings. Inside, they found over 3,000 prisoners from multiple species. Many were injured. Some were dying. The conditions were horrible. "We are here to help," Rodriguez told the prisoners in a gentle voice that was completely different from her combat tone. "We are getting you out. Stay calm. We will protect you." The extraction was when everything went wrong. Crash reinforcements arrived early. Suddenly, the Marines were outnumbered 3-1. The smart tactical decision would be to abandon the prisoners and escape. The humans did the opposite. "Form defensive positions around the civilians," Rodriguez ordered. "No one gets through. No one." For 2 hours, 23 human Marines held off over 70 Kresh soldiers. They used every tactical advantage, every trick, every weapon they had. They fought with a ferocity that shocked Zelthar. These humans were not fighting for victory. They were fighting to protect people they did not even know. 3 Marines died in that battle. 7 more were wounded, but not a single prisoner was lost. When human reinforcements finally arrived, every civilian was evacuated safely. Zelthar helped carry wounded Marines to the transport ships. He looked at Captain Rodriguez, her armor scorched and damaged, her face exhausted. "Why?" he asked. "Why risk everything for people you do not know?" Rodriguez looked at him with those forward-facing predator eyes. But what Zelthar saw in them was not predatory. It was something else. Something fierce and protective and utterly human. "Because someone has to," she said simply. "Because if we do not stand between the innocent and the monsters, who will? We know what it is like to be victims. We swore we would never let it happen again, not to us, not to anyone." Zelthar finally understood. Humanity was not aggressive because they loved war. They were aggressive because they hated what war did to the innocent. Every brutal tactic, every overwhelming strike, every terrifying display of force was designed for one purpose: to end the fighting as quickly as possible so fewer people would die. Back at the council station, Zelthar prepared his report. But before he could submit it, new alarms sounded. The Kresh Dominion had deployed their ultimate weapon, a planet-killer device heading for Velkar Prime, his homeworld. 4 billion of his people lived there. The human fleet had 12 hours to respond, and Zelthar knew that in that moment, humanity would reveal who they truly were. The planet killer was a weapon from Nightmare, a massive device that used focused gravity waves to tear worlds apart from the inside. It moved through space toward Velkar Prime, and the entire galaxy watched in horror. The Kresh had sent an ultimatum with the weapon. Surrender immediately or watch a core world die. Zelthar stood on the surface of his homeworld looking up at the sky. His family was here. His children, barely old enough to understand what was happening, clung to him. Billions of his people looked to the stars, knowing death was approaching. Evacuation was impossible. There was not enough time, not enough ships, not enough hope. In orbit, the human fleet received the information about the planet killer. Admiral Vasquez called an immediate command meeting. Council observers were connected via transmission. They heard what was said next. "Analysis confirms the weapon will reach Velkar Prime in 11 hours and 43 minutes, reported a human tactical officer. "Our fleet can intercept in approximately 12 hours if we push engines to maximum. But even if we arrive in time, our weapons cannot destroy the device. It is too heavily armored." "What about the Council fleet?" someone asked. "They are scattered across multiple systems. The nearest Council ships are 17 hours away. We are the only ones who can reach Velkar Prime in time." Silence filled the communication channel. Every species on the call understood the mathematics. The humans could maybe reach the planet before the weapon fired, but they could not stop it. And attempting a defense would put the entire human fleet at risk. The smart move, the logical move, would be to preserve military strength and evacuate whoever could be saved. Admiral Vasquez spoke. Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard every word. "How many people on Velkar Prime?" 4.2 billion, Admiral." "Understood." "All ships, this is Vasquez. Plot course to Velkar Prime, maximum burn. Push reactors to 110%. We are going in." "Admiral," said a council observer, shock clear in his voice, "you cannot stop that weapon. You will be sacrificing your fleet for nothing." "There are 4 billion people on that planet," Admiral Vasquez replied. "They are not nothing. They are lives worth saving, lives worth protecting. We did not come back to the galaxy to let worlds die. All ships acknowledge orders. One by one, every human captain acknowledged. Not a single voice hesitated. Not a single commander questioned the order. They were going to save Velkar Prime or die trying. On the surface, Zelthar received notification of the human fleet's approach. He looked at his children and felt something break inside him. These strangers, these humans that his people had called myths and feared as monsters, were coming to save them, knowing they might die, knowing it might be hopeless. But coming anyway. The human fleet arrived with 37 minutes to spare. They positioned themselves between the planet killer and Velkar Prime. The formation was tight, every ship overlapping their defensive fields. "We cannot destroy it," Admiral Vasquez announced to the fleet, "but we can stop it. Initiate Protocol Sundial." Zelthar had never heard of Protocol Sundial. Neither had any council observer. But the humans knew. And when they understood what their admiral was ordering, there was a long moment of silence. Then, one by one, every human ship acknowledged. They knew what was coming. They accepted it. Protocol Sundial was a desperation measure developed during humanity's isolation. Every human warship carried multiple fusion reactors. Under normal conditions, these reactors were carefully controlled and completely safe. But they could be overloaded. All of them. At the same time. The resulting explosion would create an energy field capable of disrupting the planet killer's gravity weapon. The device would be rendered useless. Velkar Prime would be saved, but every human ship would be destroyed. 217 vessels. Over 40,000 human crew members. The entire Terran fleet. All ships begin reactor overload sequence, Admiral Vasquez ordered. Set for simultaneous detonation. We have 30 minutes. Make your peace. Say your goodbyes. It has been an honor serving with every one of you. On Velkar Prime, screens broadcast the human fleet's final preparations. 4 billion people watched in stunned silence. The humans were not running. They were not abandoning the planet. They were preparing to die for people who were not their own species. For a world that was not their home. Zelthar found himself clicking mandibles in his species' gesture of mourning. Around him, millions of his people did the same. They were watching heroes die, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The reactors began their overload sequence. The countdown started. 29 minutes, 28, 27. Then something happened that no one expected. The Kresh Dominion sent a transmission. It was broadcast on all frequencies to every ship, to every world. "This is Kresh Supreme Commander Talvorik. We are transmitting our unconditional surrender to the Terran Confederacy and the Galactic Council. Cease all military operations. Recall the planet killer device. We submit." For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Admiral Vasquez spoke carefully. "Commander Talvorik, confirm your transmission." "You are surrendering?" "Yes." The Kresh commander's voice was filled with something no one had ever heard from his species before. Fear and respect. "We surrender. We have monitored your preparations. You were willing to sacrifice your entire fleet to save a world that is not even your own. We cannot fight an enemy like that. We cannot defeat beings who care more about protecting others than preserving themselves. You have won. Not with superior weapons, not with better tactics. You have won because you are willing to die for what you believe in. We are not. We surrender." The planet killer changed course, moving away from Velkar Prime. Kresh ships across the galaxy began standing down. The war was over. Admiral Vasquez gave the order to abort Protocol Sundial. The human fleet powered down their reactor overload sequence. 40,000 humans had been seconds away from death. Now they would live. On the surface of Velkar Prime, 4 billion people erupted in celebration. They chanted one word in 100 different languages. Human, human, human. Zelthar collapsed to his knees. His children wrapped around him. He looked up at the sky where the human fleet still orbited. No longer a threat, but a shield. He understood now. The galaxy had called humans myths. They had feared them as monsters. But they were neither. They were guardians. Protectors who would stand between the innocent and destruction, no matter the cost. 6 months later, the Galactic Council formally welcomed humanity as full members. The ceremony was watched by trillions across the galaxy. Admiral Vasquez stood before the assembled delegates and spoke. "You called us myths. You feared we were monsters. Some of you wondered if our return was a blessing or a curse. I want you to understand what humanity is. We are survivors of terrible war. We carry scars that will never fully heal. We isolated ourselves because we were afraid. Afraid of being hurt again, afraid of losing more of our people. But isolation taught us something important. It taught us that peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is what you build by standing against those who would harm the innocent. Peace is what you protect by being willing to fight when necessary. She paused, looking around the chamber at representatives from dozens of species. We are not perfect. We are aggressive. We are fierce. We fight with a brutality that disturbs many of you. But we fight to protect. We fight to defend. We fight so others do not have to. You called us myths. We prefer to think of ourselves as a promise. A promise that no matter how dark the galaxy becomes, someone will stand between the innocent and the void. Someone will say no to the monsters. Someone will pay any price, make any sacrifice to ensure that civilizations like yours can live in peace. Humanity remembers. Humanity endures. And humanity protects what we claim as ours. And we claim all of you. Every species in this council. Every civilian on every world. You are under our protection now. Not because you asked for it. Not because you earned it. But because protecting others is what we do. It is who we are. It is why we came back. The council chamber erupted in applause. Zelthar stood and clicked his mandibles in approval. Around him, species from across the galaxy showed their own gestures of respect and gratitude. The humans had returned. The myths had become real. And the galaxy was safer for it. Because humanity had learned the hardest lesson and carried it with them through 5 centuries of isolation. Some beings are monsters. But some beings are guardians, and humanity had chosen which they would be.